Hey, this is Tony from Dragged Under. You're watching Heavy New York.
Heavy New York!
What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York. We are finally back at the Gramercy Theater, and we are here with Tony of Dragged Under. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, man. It's cool.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. The World Is In Your Way, the debut record from Dragged Under. Do you just want to talk about like how the making of this record was, the recording, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Initially, when we went into the studio, we were in another band, and this record was going to be the third record for that band, and it was just so different. And that band had like lost all of its momentum. We had a couple tours that were supposed to go through that kind of fell through, and members that didn't really want to be involved anymore. So it was just like, why are we spinning our wheels with this? You know, like, can I swear?
Yeah.
Okay. We were just spinning our wheels, and we're like, man, fuck this. Like, let's just do something different with this. So started a whole new band, changed the name, and changed the style, and kind of just went forward with what we wanted to do. We were gonna do this record how it was, no matter what. Like, it was gonna come out like it was gonna come out. But it just made more sense to be like, this music's too different from what we were doing with that band. So it was like, well, let's just scrap that shit anyway, because people weren't really buying it, and we didn't have a lot of traction.
Yeah.
So it made more sense to just be like, and I didn't want to be the third singer of that band. We had already had 2 singer changes, and I would have been the third. So I was just I didn't want my legacy to be like, oh yeah, he was the third singer of that one band. I was like, fuck this, his songs are too good. Like, I care too much about them to have them just be the third album, you know, in like a discography of albums that nobody gives a shit about.
One thing I was curious about actually is because I thought that this record had like a lot of different elements in it. Like I thought a song like Hypochondria was very different from a song like Chelsea, for example, or something like that.
Yeah.
So was that like maybe the original preconceived idea to make like a fairly, I guess, experimental record?
Not even. I mean, it was the idea was just, let's just make what we want. And there were like 5 or 6 songs that didn't make the album that like sounded like Periphery and like Architects and shit. Like there was some really departurous material on the album that we ended up just saying like, okay, this is way too different from what we want to do. But we were just like, if it falls on like the punk hardcore spectrum, it's cool with us. And that's what we're all really into, is like skate punk and hardcore and metalcore and stuff. So those influences, as long as it was like in that area, it made sense for the album. And that was what we were going to do. And initially with Chelsea, we almost were like, this is too, it's not like enough of our style, but we just hate getting trapped in those bubbles. It sucks to be like, this is a great song. It's our number 1 trending song right now. So imagine if we never put it out. You know, like we're shooting ourselves in the foot because of what people might think. So we kind of just like tried to throw, you know, throw caution to the wind, and write whatever we felt like. Yeah. And our producer Hiram really challenged us a lot to just like, man, fuck it, fuck what people think. Do whatever you want to do. Do you like this song? Yeah, it rips. All right, let's put it on the record.
Yeah. You ever worried? You mentioned you left a couple of songs out on the record. You ever worried that like the songs you leave out are going to be like a B-side and just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
No, not really, because they are good songs, but they were so different from what we wanted to do that it was like the drop A, like riff, genty, like tucker, like really, I don't know, like almost like very progressive and like low-tuned metal. And it was just like, as a singer over these songs, I'm either gonna have to sing really, really, really high or like learn how to do like low growls. And I was just like, that's not what I really want to do. I want to do like high energy, emotive punk rock. And that's, I think, what we all had in mind. So I don't really worry too much about what if. I mean, we know that we're going to make some mistakes along the way and learning how to be a band and learning how to like market ourselves properly. But I think Riot was one of those where we put Riot out and we just kind of like threw it on Spotify and just like went up. We didn't like give it the time to like sit with the editors. It made no playlists. And that was a song we thought was going to do really well. And it just kind of like, it did okay. It did fine for a band our size, but we had higher hopes for it as one of our singles. But, you know, it's one of the worst performing singles we've had. So
there you go. Part
of that, some of that's our fault. But a lot of it is just has to do with the fact that it's like, we don't fully know our audience yet, you know, and I think Riot is closer to Chelsea than any of the other songs, but that's why we wanted to put those songs out, because we want people to understand, like, we don't know what the direction of our band is yet, I don't think. We know that what we like, and we know what people are responding to, but ultimately we're going to do what we want to do, and that might be, we really like playing Chelsea, so who knows, the next 2 records might sound like, you know, early Green Day or something. I really have no idea what it's going to sound like.
You never know. I think that's great, because I thought your music was, again, kind of like experimental. Like, I thought, you know, from listening to this, I was like, oh, this could resonate with like somebody who likes the Used, who you're touring with now. But I could see people who are fans of like Killswitch Engage also appreciate this. And then I could see people who like My Chemical Romance. Definitely. And then people who, I don't know, Slayer, maybe going
Yeah, like, we have that problem with like, we've written ourselves into a corner before, I think, like all of us have, every member with our previous projects. And especially the three of us, me, Josh, and Ryan, who were in the last band together. I think it's like in that band, we kind of, we wrote ourselves into a box, and it was just like, this is what our music sounds like, and this is the kind of band we are. And with this band, we want to just be like, who fucking cares? If it's like anything punk or rock or hard rock or metal adjacent, why don't we just do it?
Definitely.
Because I think it's like, I'd rather, you don't see directors, like maybe Quentin Tarantino, but you don't see like Spielberg doing one type of movie, or like you don't see any other creative types of people forcing themselves to not try new things. It's like everybody wants to write, a love story and a horror novel or whatever, but like we don't want to be. Imagine if actors were like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you just do horror movies, right? Or like Joaquin Phoenix, we never did the Joker. It's like people want to experiment. They want to depart from the things that people tell them they're best at or what they should be doing. And that's just, we're no exception. We just want to do music that we think is catchy. And if we listen to it or we send it to somebody and they go, yeah, this song's a ripper or whatever, great. It's good enough for the record. And that's really the only litmus of what is or is not good enough for the record. Do we like it? And will other people vibe with it? And those are the most important elements of like what songs make the record and what songs don't.
Definitely. As a vocalist, do you need to hear music in order to come up with lyrics, or could a subject matter or a concept maybe help determine the music itself?
I always start with a concept to writing lyrics, but definitely the music can definitely have a vibe. Like, you hear things and like Chelsea, it always had like that really upbeat, up-tempo thing, and then sometimes you just hear a noise and you're just like meh, 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 and you're like, oh, that could be cool, or like whoa-whoas and shit, you're just like, oh, this sounds perfect for like a whoa, so sometimes it's weird, like just one sound or like one melody will elicit like the response in your brain that's like, oh, this is going to be a happy song, or this is going to be like a dark song. But a lot of the times I'll write lyrics without any need to hear music, but melodies obviously definitely almost always come after I hear the song, and I write to the song.
Yeah, nothing could be more heartbreaking too than having like the best lyrics ever and then seeing how like they always go like one syllable over the actual arrangement.
Dude, yeah, that's like it triggers my OCD like so bad, because I sit with my lyrics for a long time before I go into the studio and just like, all right, here we go, I'm just gonna shit out words onto this paper and like we're gonna go for it. Like, I like to write a lot of stuff in advance. Some of the songs, they do work better and they form better when I'm just like in the studio with a pencil and just like, all right, I'm feeling it. But yeah, it's a bummer when you're like, fuck, I really wanted that line in there. Like, and it's not too long, or it doesn't fit, or it doesn't make sense for the subject matter. So a lot of stuff changes like in the studio in real time, like literally in the booth changing lyrics. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you must have some experience.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes in order, you kind of like led me into the next question, because like, I've always thought inspiration could sometimes come out of nowhere, and then there's some people who like need to be in a certain, I guess for lack of better words, like bubble in order to get inspired to write. Does one work better for the other? Do you find it better to like when you're with the entirety of a band, you get more ideas that way, or is isolation
I think my best ideas come when I'm with Hiram, our producer. He challenges me a lot. He tells me when he doesn't like something. He hypes me up when he thinks something is rad. So I think me and him write really well together. Some of the songs, like a lot of the songs actually, I think 4 of them were written like separate from the band. Chelsea being one of them. I wrote all those lyrics, and we wrote the melodies together down there at his studio, as opposed to like coming up to us and working in Seattle. I went to him because we didn't need 5 people in the room to do lyrics and vocals. Just it's overkill. So when I was just with him, I wrote Roots down there, which is a lot of really inspired lyrical content, and that was based off of something. Roots wasn't even written. That was the last song we wrote, and it just kind of like came to be because we had another song that wasn't going to ended up not making the record, that just was like, there's nothing I can sing that won't sound like Nickelback on this song. Mm-hmm. So it was just like, all right, this one's not going to make the record. So we had to write a new song, and Roots came out in like literally one day. We wrote that whole song just because I think we were both just so inspired. We were writing something else, and he wrote this riff, and he was like, dude, that has to be its own song. And we just went off on this tangent. So I don't know. Sometimes it's like, for lyrics, I have to write when I think of something. It's like shower thoughts almost, where you're like, you have this great thought, you have to just like write it down. But it almost always happens in the shower. You have these great thoughts, and you're like writing it in the steam or something. But yeah, I think that's what happens for me a lot. Is I think my most inspired stuff just is like, boop, and it just pops in my head. I'm like, oh my God, that's a great fucking lyric. And I have to like put it on paper, put it in my phone right away. So a lot of my lyrics before we go into the studio are just like lines, just like 1 or 2 lines, and then like a line, 1 or 2 lines, a line, 1 or 2 lines, and they develop over time. But yeah, I don't really have like a method per se for songwriting exactly, but lyrics, it's just for me, it's like as soon as it comes to my head, I have to put that on paper or I will forget it forever.
Yeah. Can lyrics be open to interpretation, or do you try to maybe engage the listener into seeing things from your point of view?
I definitely try to engage the listener. A lot of our songs are very literal. There's not a whole lot of like nuance to what I'm saying. Even in the stuff that people might think like, oh wow, what's so dark and deep, but like it's probably not. I try to speak and write in a very literal way that doesn't I don't like to mince words. I like people to know exactly what I'm thinking or feeling, good or bad. But there are some songs that I think people will interpret their own way no matter what. But a lot of them are not metaphorical. I think probably Covered in Sin is probably the most metaphorical song we have.
Just because it's direct, too, doesn't mean it's not deep.
Yeah, well, there's some very deep, conversations happening, if you will, on the album, like Hypochondria, obviously, about being a hypochondriac, and then The Hardest Drug about, relationships and drug addiction that comes into relationships and how that plays out, and codependency and stuff. And then, Roots is a pretty literal song, but it's not about what people might think. It's just mostly just about how the world of labels and agents and managers typically works, and the fact that we won't buy into it. Everybody we work with to this point we have handshake deals with our management, our agent, our lawyer. It's all just people that want to work with us, and
awesome.
We don't like to sign shit. And we're like, look, if you fuck with us, sweet, let's do it. If you don't, then we want you to be able to leave just as much as we want to be able to leave. So I hope we can't keep that up forever, but while we're a young band, it's important to us that like people understand what we're where we're coming from, and especially from like the lyrics point, I want it to be very pointed and people to have a reaction. But if they draw something from it that I didn't mean, that's cool too. It doesn't bother me at all.
Definitely. You can't control how other people feel.
No, not at all. But that's why I like doing these interviews, because I like people to understand like, oh yeah, I saw an interview he did once, and he's literally talking about like thinking that he's dying. It's not like a metaphor for life or love. It's just, yeah, I wake up sometimes and I think that I'm dying. There's not much to it.
There you go.
Pretty plain.
That's why I've always liked the interviews. But what's funny is because we went really deep into the songwriting process and we really dived in. Here comes the most difficult question of every artist I interview. How do you know when a song is done?
Fuck, dude.
Cue the Jeopardy music.
I know. I don't even know when like food is done, and then like, you know what I mean? Like I could follow any recipe
When it's
and
cooked.
still fuck something up. Well, yeah, I always seem to mess that up. But I think I don't know. I really don't know. And that's why I try not to be too involved in like the production side of stuff. Like I know what I can do, and the song feels done when, I don't know, when you listen to it and you just go, there's nothing I can add that would make this better. Everything I would add to this would take away from what it does. Because we definitely have those times, right, where people, it's the same reason I stopped like writing riffs with like effect pedals, because I'm just like, well, I'm not even using this fucking pedal. And like I would start to get this FOMO about being like, if I don't use the whammy for this song, like how will people know that I have it? It's just like, who fucking cares? So there's definitely have been times where, you hear these songs and they get to like the bridge or the last chorus and there's like 5 vocals going at the same time, and it's like they're doing the chorus, the callback, the harmony, some other random bullshit in the background. It's just like, for our music, we want it to be very consumable, and we don't want to like bog people down with trying to put shit in the song that doesn't need to be there. It's a lot of it's 4 or 5 chord punk rock, and we love it that way. And some of my favorite songs ever have been 3 chords through the entire song.
Sometimes the simplest explanation is always the best.
Yeah. What do they say? The quickest point between 2 places is a straight line, and I think we like to employ that with our music. It's just like, what do we want them to know, or how do we want them to feel? I want them to feel like this. Okay, does this get that done? Yeah, all right, then we're chilling. It's good. Don't fuck it up.
There you go. Quick and to the point.
Yeah, definitely.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is, when it comes to playing live, is there maybe a similar energy into the live performance as you are when you're songwriting, or are they 2 completely separate arts altogether?
They could not be more different for me. Like songwriting it's not very emotional. It's very logical for me. I try to like think about the whole picture, the whole like the whole product, right? Like when you're making a TV, it's not just like, all right, make it 80 inches and make it curved. It's like there's so much that goes into it. Like you have to think about like the marketing behind it, like, you know, where do all the ports go? How do all the circuits line up? Like it's so surgical when you're songwriting. Maybe that was a stupid analogy, but I think you understand what I mean. There's a whole product that comes with everything, you know, like, or like Apple, like when you open the iPhone, like holding it and waiting for it to like slide out.
Yeah.
It's all part of the process, and like they think about that shit when they're making the product. So it's kind of the same way we're doing it. It's a little less like doing art and more like doing surgery, I think, for me anyway. Where it's not to say that I'm, you know, the surgeon of words or anything. Like our songs are not. I'm not a poet by any means, but like I am like in my room by myself, writing or typing or, you know, thinking or just on the bus or fucking in a plane or wherever I'm at in the car. I'm always thinking about lyrics or, you know, how they could be better or what they mean or what am I trying to say? Does this get that across? Does it fit with the theme of the song? But then when we get on stage, it's like 30 minutes of blackout, you know, like the other night, one of our guitarists was like, did you see the bubble, like so-and-so in the front row? Like they were doing this. And I was just like, I literally don't know who you're talking about. Cause I'm like up there and I'm like, my eyes are open, but I'm not really seeing anything, you know, like I'm scanning the room so much. I'm trying to interact with like every set of eyes in the room that I can find and make everyone feel like I looked at them once if I can. I'm running off to the side where there's people 15 feet that way that are like literally looking at the show like this, like from the side. So for me, it's, you know, you'll see if you're staying for the show, you'll see it's very high energy. We like to put on a show because that's why people come to the live show. It's got to be something more than just play me the album, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like seeing a movie of your favorite book. You don't want it to just be a complete retelling. Like it's always boring for me, and I'm like, that's exactly how I imagined the book. Like I want it to be a little bit different. It's like, oh man, I didn't picture so and so like that. It's cool that they gave him these attributes or that they did this thing with the story instead. So
Yeah, you're probably the first person I hear say that. Everybody who watches a movie based on a book, like Perks for Being a Wallflower is one of my favorite
that's
movies
the fucking
ever.
first one that came to my mind, dude.
Yeah.
That's so crazy you said that.
That's my favorite movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, and yet when I was in the theater, everybody was complaining that
Dude,
it was missing
That
stuff
movie
from the
almost
book.
gave me a fucking anxiety attack.
It gave me one.
At the end where Charlie's all like
Yes.
at the party, I
Yes.
was like, dude, I have to get out of here. Like,
Yeah.
woo. Yeah, that fucked me up. But yeah, no, I like it to be a little bit different because it's like I had my own idea in my head what it was like. So like, take me somewhere else. And I think that's what we try to do with our live shows. Like, welcome to another world. It's like our responsibility for people to leave here and go, yo, that band sounded fucking awesome, but that dude was crazy. He was hanging from the ceiling. Like, he fucking threw water on me. He like grabbed my face and came in the crowd or whatever. Like, the bands that I always loved, the bands that I really latched onto growing up did that stuff.
Like Dillinger Escape Plan.
Yeah,
or-
Let Live.
Yep.
Was-
Oh my
and
God.
then Jason's still one of my favorite singers ever.
I'm so glad I got to see Let Live at least once.
They're
before they
amazing.
Split. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
now Fever 333 does pretty much the same
dude,
thing.
they're like the dude like climbs like 50-foot scaffolding with his guitar and
saw
then like
them in a
swings it
s-
around his head.
I saw them in a stadium at a festival, and they made that stadium literally into the size of the screen room.
How fucked up is that? Like, that's what we want to do. And I think for us, like Boston was a great show for us because the barricade was like most shows. I'd have to like get down and then like take a step or two to the barricade, get up on the barricade. But like with this show in Boston that we played, it was just like the barricade was maybe a foot from the stage, and it was just like it felt like a hardcore show. Like it felt like playing like venues when I was a kid. Like the fans were right there. There's like no separation. And I personally can't stand barricades. I understand their need, especially at a show like this where there's like production and lights and pedal boards and stuff.
And
but
New Yorkers.
yeah, well, I don't know New Yorkers. And I don't want to make any. I don't want to cast any aspersions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean there was a night where in Sacramento we were playing Ace of Spades, and some guy somehow got around the security and went to like run and stage dive. And this was a big dude, like probably 250, like 6'3", big ass dude, and like hit Bert with his shoulder on the way out and like flung him into the fucking barricade. And it was just like, goddamn, like scary shit. And that's why they have the barricade. It's like they don't want shit like accidents can happen. Yeah. But if it were up to me, I'd be like, no, strike the barricade for our set, and then you could put it up when the use is up here. I would love to do that.
That whole situation, that's like a Geico commercial waiting to happen. Like, you better have insurance.
Dude, straight up, yeah. I literally, like, I remember going, like, gasping. Because I was like, oh, no, he's dead. Like, you killed him. Because he fucking flew off the stage so hard and, like, smacked his ribs against the thing. And thank God he went, like just like this, you know, straight out, like, from the barricade and didn't, like, land on his fucking head. It was scary. So I understand that. I understand their need, but I definitely, we have, for us, there's a definite change in the energy the closer we are to the crowd physically.
There you go. I feel like the crowd feeds off of you, and you feed off the crowd.
1,000,000%. Absolutely. They say commotion creates emotion. So We try to
I
be.
like that.
We try to do that, and it's like you said, like how do you turn a stadium into feeling like a hardcore show, you know? And some bands can do it
Definitely.
with ease. And there have been some shows on this tour, 2 shows in the Midwest in particular, that we were just like, these guys didn't like us, you know? And then we go out and do the merch, and the numbers are good. They're on par with everything else, but it's some nights, I don't know. Maybe it's the room or the lights or the music they played before we went on or something, but there's so much that goes into putting on a live show for us, and it's so much different than how we act in the studio.
Definitely. So before we go, I'd like to thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure, man. Thank
It
you
was
for
an
having
honor.
me.
Is there just anything else you would like to promote for Dragged Under after this tour with the Used? I mean, this will be uploaded by midnight, so if it hasn't been announced yet,
I wish I had something to tell you. But no, we unfortunately right now we have nothing in the works. But in this business, like I think this tour and the tour we took before it that got canceled, we took with that first one we took with the 3 days notice. Literally packed our shit and like drove to LA, and then it got canceled. We had to drive back. But the tour with the Used, I think we learned about it a month before we left.
Oh wow.
So if we found out about a tour today, we would have 2 weeks at home before we had to go back out. So this stuff can shift like overnight, especially for bands like us that are like up and coming and trying to do cool shit. Like we'll go with the drop of a hat. You don't need to worry about us, and we'll do it for cheap, and we'll put on a fucking show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate your time.
Everybody, Tony of Dragged Under, The World Is In Your Way. Be sure to pick that up if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.